Hello, welcome to the AOCS webinar series. My name is Scott Bloomer. I'm the Director of Technical Services here at AOCS, and we are going to have a webinar today with representatives from Minesoft, Ken Ropke and Kevin Spahr, and they are going to give a webinar on patents, and I advise you to pay close attention because I've seen this webinar and everything they have to say is very much worth hearing. So questions will be entered into the chat box, please, if you have them, and they will probably be fielded at the end, but that is up to the presenters. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy this webinar as much as I have. Kevin, Ken?
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to talk about why patents are important. So in this webinar, we're going to cover what a patent is. We're also going to talk a little bit about some misconceptions and what a patent isn't. Then we'll talk about the core of the topic today, which is why are patents important to you and why are they important for R&D? Then we'll dive into a little bit around the introduction to a patent structure and the terminology that you might see as you start your research into patents. And then we'll cover some of basics of patent researching using patent searching tool PatBase Express. So what is a patent? So a patent is a type of intellectual property protection. In addition to trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets, a patent specifically protects inventions. So we talked about patents protecting an invention. What it does not do is it does not give you the right to invent something, to use something, to market or sell. What it does is it prevents others. It gives you that protection from others marketing, selling, or manufacturing your idea or your invention. So we'll dive into a little bit more of that, of why that helps and why that makes it even more important to start doing your patent research. And generally a patent lasts for about 20 years, but there are all sorts of fees and requirements to maintain that coverage. And we won't get into much today because that's usually left to the legal folks, but know that there are three requirements when you're doing your patent research, when you're performing your R&D and throughout the R&D process. There are three requirements for an invention to be patentable. The first is it must be novel, so it must be new, and it must not be documented in any way. And it must not be documented in a patent, it must not be documented in a journal, or any sort of the technological disclosures available to you anywhere that's publicly available. It must be non-obvious. So it must not be an obvious solution. So it must not be something that a professional in your technological field would find and be able to put together on their own. And last, and this may seem like common sense, but it must be useful. So there must be proof. You must show proof that it works to solve a problem and the problem that it's intended to solve. So when that patent, those three requirements are met, that is what is needed to for an invention to become patentable. So knowing what's happening in your technological field when you're researching patents and knowing what the future is looking like is important in this fast changing world, as you all know. And patents can be the first indication of new inventive steps. And that's why thousands of companies around the world research inventions and specifically patents to keep abreast of those trends, and meet the future head on. So disruptive changes arise from SMEs all the time. And so R&D, as an R&D professional, you must monitor those new technologies as they can be the indicators of those new developments and those new trends as they begin to start. So we talked a little bit about the fees and the time it takes that you well know that's put into R&D. And we talked about the fees for a patent. Patents are not cheap. They often cost thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the coverage from around the world. So companies obviously want a return on that invested time, that invested money in the development efforts. So as a patent holder, that company or the owner of the patent receives benefits, the benefits of commercializing the invention, as the patent creates a monopoly for the life cycle of a patent. So we talked about that patent protection, preventing others from manufacturing, selling, or marketing that invention or that idea. So there's a couple of different ways they can commercialize, or a patent holder can commercialize a patent and the invention. And that's one, you can decide to sell the patent in a lump sum. You can choose to license the patent out and allow others to use that patent and use that patent protection to manufacture and sell the invention. Or you can use the patent to generate royalties. And licensing, which is probably the most common of the commercializing efforts, it takes place all over the world, and it's a great way to enable widespread use of the idea. And that widespread use of the idea is important because that's one of the premises of a patent. That's one of the beliefs in the patent system, is that patents are designed to stimulate further innovation. So in return for that patent protection, the patent documents are published, and they're made publicly available intentionally to stimulate further innovation. So therefore, it's a good idea to research patents to ensure that there's no overlap in your development. And this way, you're essentially not wasting any time, you're not wasting money in your development, and you're not wasting any efforts on reinventing something. And it's also helpful when you're researching patents because you may come across new ideas based on what other people's work. And you may be able to use those existing inventions that have already been patented to help further your innovation. So there's a commissioner's report from the European Commission that said that 30%, it's estimated 30% of all R&D spending is wasted, and it's wasted on redeveloping an idea that's already been solved and a solution that's already been found. So if you extrapolate that out to the US market and just the US alone, that could mean that over $174 billion of R&D expenditure is wasted because that idea, that invention, that solution has already been found. So doing some preliminary research can help you ensure that at the end of the R&D project, the months and years in many cases that it takes to complete a development project, if you want to file a patent, you aren't knowingly infringing on someone else's idea, but you also know that you've done your due diligence and you've researched your solution to ensure that it is patentable. So we talked a little bit about what a patent is and why it can be important, but before you start to do your patent research, it's helpful to understand the basics of a patent, to understand the patent structure. And so moving a bit into the basics of the patent and its structure, it's good to know that we talked about the cost of a patent, and the cost can be dependent on filing it worldwide, but patents are, and always have been for over 100 years, territorial. So patents only protect in the countries or the jurisdictions in which that patent is granted by that jurisdiction's patent office. And different decisions can be made about the same patent across different patent offices. They all have similar structure, similar rules, but each patent office makes their own decision on a particular patent filing. And there are standard parts of the document that make up a patent. And so we'll start by looking at those parts. And specifically, we'll take a look initially at the bibliographic information. The bibliographic information includes the document's title, an abstract, which is a short description of the invention, along with the assignee. In this case, we've listed the probable assignee as IBM. And this can also, but not always, include the inventors of the particular idea or the invention. And so assignees are the owner of the patent. So it does not always include the inventor, because oftentimes the inventor works for the assignee or the company that owns the patent. In addition to the bibliographic information, there's also a number of numbers that come with a patent. And a patent number is an identifier for that patent. And there could be different numbers assigned to a document for both the application and the publication of the same patent document. And the date of the application and the date of the publication are important for a patent document, as the protection starts specifically from the application date. So as you're doing your patent research, it's important to take note of the application date to see when that patent protection actually started. And there's a system of priority that belongs and follows the rules according to those application dates to determine the exact protection that's applied, as well as the time frame for which it's applied to. So as we take a look, we've taken a look at the bibliographic information, we've taken a look at some of the patent numbers that are around, but there's also the full text of the patent, the full document. And the full text includes the complete text of the technology being patented. And this includes a description and a state-of-the-art discussion, which is included in what is called the claims of the patent. And the claims are a scope of the invention written from a legal perspective. And the description also may include images, as we saw in one of the previous slides, and drawings of the invention, which could be chemical structures, mechanical, or electrical drawings. But the description must include enough information that a professional skilled in the area of the invention could actually replicate the invention. And this requirement ensures that the invention will not only be useful, but it'll be useful even after the expiration of the patent's term. So as we talked about before, it could stimulate that further innovation. And it means that the patent document contains far more technical information and more details than most other publications available in your research and through your journals. So the World Intellectual Property Organization estimates that on average, 70% of the details found in a patent, 70% of the information in a patent are not available publicly anywhere else. So we talked about the importance of researching patents as part of your R&D. 70% of the technical details, the claims that we talked about, where that information in detail must show a professional skilled in the area how to replicate that invention. This speaks to how vital it is that an R&D department be able to build upon existing ideas and help drive that innovation using patents and using the technical details found in a patent and possibly nowhere else. So we talked a little about the claims before, but in revisiting the claims, it's important because they are often considered the most important part of a patent from a legal perspective. And this is what the inventor claims the invention can do or will solve. And there are two types of claims as you're looking through. The independent claims, which are standalone, and they contain elements that define the invention. And there are dependent claims, which build upon those independent claims, and they further define elements outlined in the corresponding independent claims. And we spoke about the drawings, which are also included in the full text of the patent. And the drawings, again, are images of the invention. And within PatBase Express, which we'll jump into in a second, you can quickly and easily review these drawings, either in a standalone and individually, such as we're taking a look here, or along the bottom, you can start to see, you can open up a mosaic to get a full snapshot of all of the images, all of the drawings, all of the technical details and drawings that are included in a patent document. All right, so now we've talked about the importance of patents within R&D, reviewing that, finding that 70% of information that's not publicly available anywhere else. But how do you start your research? How do you take the patents and the structure of a patent, the details and found in the patent, and how do you start to use that to find information that's relevant to you and relevant to your research and development? And so the basics of patent searching using PatBase Express, there are a number of different parts, and we're going to talk about why those different parts are important as you're starting to break them down and search those different parts of the patent. And the details contained in a patent document and their relevant sections make patent research an excellent source. But again, how do we find those details? And by using search tools such as PatBase Express, a researcher can define specific fields within the patent to narrow down the millions of patents, again, filed around the world, based on specific criteria relevant to my invention or my idea. So in this case, we've chosen a few keywords which describes my invention. A reasonable time frame for which similar technology could be available, in this case, the last 20 years, so after 2000, and a couple of publication countries which are relevant to the sale or manufacture of my invention. So we've chosen the US the WO, the World Organization, as well as the European. And this type of criteria is often part of a larger discussion around your IP, but what it does is it helps take shape throughout the course of the development of your invention. Now, as you start to do your research and as you start to narrow down the results, performing an analysis of your search results can help you show those trends, those future trends, or give you an overview of your result set to support strategic decisions throughout your development or your marketing of your invention, as well as help you identify potential competitors or possibly even future partners in licensing and where the most investment or innovation exists within your field. So an analysis can be a great place to start your research. Rather than searching for a specific solution, you can start with a landscape across a technical field to get a better understanding of that field as it relates to the patents. So here we show a 3D patent landscape of the search that we just performed on driverless cars and the technology that's included within that search. So this map shows the most keywords associated with our search phrase within patent documents. So this helps identify technical areas for us to focus our development, as well as less explored white space, which may be where we choose to focus our efforts or our R&D strategy, or further allocate further resources. And a great feature within our analysis is the side-by-side, which allows you to see the landscape on one side, while clicking on a data point or a keyword within the visualization shows the underlying documents which make up that development area. So while a pretty picture can help tell a story, the underlying details will help you make the strategic decisions to move forward with your research and development. And there are many types of graphs and visualizations, such as this classification search, which categorizes the top technology groups based on the search that we performed earlier. And this can help you broaden your search to expand your results, or you can also use it to click on a specific classification to narrow the data set in, and take a look at a specific subset of the patent data. And drilling down into that specific field, we can also use that to further expand and find new areas where we might look to develop our invention. And lastly, when you're viewing an overview of, say, active inventors or assignees in this case, you can find those inventors or assignees in your field, and that may present you with a potential list of those developing in your field for you to, again, license your technology or possibly acquire their existing intellectual property or possibly collaborate with them on future R&D. And all the graphs within PatBase Express are shareable both inside and outside of all of the tools. So the information analysis, much like patents, are designed to be shared and collaborate to help further inspire new ideas with your R&D team. So in closing, we've talked about the nature of a patent, the 3 requirements, the fact that patents are and can be held worldwide or within specific jurisdictions. And we've talked about the requirements of a patent and why that's important when you're doing your research. But most important, you can use these tools to find that information, that underlying details that pose the most benefit of knowing an underlying invention, and those can be only available within patents. So using the analytics, using keyword searches, and helping define the structure of a patent based on your invention can help you find the underlying details to either protect your invention, to use it to commercialize, or to further find new ideas to help further your invention and start new trends of your own. At this point, I thank you very much for your attention. What we'll start to do is we'll take a quick Q&A session. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to enter them in the dialog box, or you can unmute your mics and ask them.
Thanks, Ken. Nice job. So far, does not look like we've received any questions from the attendees, but some common questions that we could start with. Well, if you have a question, you could ask now. when we've given this webinar is kind of the idea of what's the difference between a world patent or an individual patent. So can you file a world patent? So as Ken mentioned, generally the answer is that patents are country specific, meaning if you want to develop and market your invention, or more importantly, prevent your competitors from developing and marketing these inventions, you would require a patent in those individual countries. However, Ken mentioned a couple of times WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, and a very common approach by companies would be to file a patent or for a patent through WIPO, meaning essentially you file one patent application and that would give you coverage in various different countries around the world. Ken, anything to add to that, or? Great. Another question that we usually get is, do we have a way to search for transactions behind the patent before it grants? Meaning, a patent goes through a process where it becomes approved or issued into a granted patent, and sometimes that process can be pretty important. So the answer is yes. Within PatBase Express, you can link out to this information from various patent offices around the world. And additionally, we have the ability to monitor this information for you, making sure you're staying on top of your competitors and helping you to make business decisions with critical timing. So the answer is yes, that is something we can do, and it's something we can really help with. So, unless anyone has any other questions or anything else to add, we thank you so much for your time, and we thank you for attending, and we hope you found this information valuable.